Hey guys, tonight we're doing something a little different. We're time traveling. Not the fun sci-fi kind with shiny gadgets and paradoxes, but the gritty, miserable kind. Picture this. It's still dark outside. Your back already hurts from yesterday, and your alarm clock is the village re-banging on your door because the Lord demands work before sunrise. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't wake up so much as get dragged into consciousness by the cold, the damp, and the smell. Oh, God, the smell. Your hut reeks of smoke, unwashed wool, and the pig that technically lives with you but mostly just judges your life choices. There's no stretching, no cozy yawn, just the immediate understanding that today, like every day, will be brutal. Your breakfast? If you're lucky, a hunk of coarse brown bread so stale you could build a house with it, washed down with weak ale, because water's suspiciously deadly in the Middle Ages. Historians still argue whether peasants were permanently tipsy or just permanently exhausted. Either way, you're both. And then it's off to the fields. No good morning, no coffee run, just backbreaking labor under the watchful eye of the Lord Steward, a man whose smile is as warm as a February puddle. You'll bend, dig, and haul until your hands blister, because 3/4 of what you grow isn't even yours. The Lord takes it. The church takes some. And what's left? Hope it lasts the winter. Fun fact. Some manors had marriage, a tax just for getting married. Love? Sure. But pay up first. The moment you step outside, you realize the Lord Steward has already been watching. He leans against a fence post, picking at his teeth with a knife, and you just know today's going to be one of those days. He doesn't even greet you, just smirks and says, "Fields looking dry. Better pray for rain." Like he's not the reason you can't afford decent tools. You trudge toward the endless strips of land you're forced to farm under the open field system, your feet sinking into mud that never really dries. The oxen are in a mood. The plow's wooden blade is splintering, and somewhere in the distance, a sheep is screaming like it's being haunted. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants ever got used to the sheer noise of rural life. Between animals, blacksmiths, and a village idiot who won't stop singing, it's a miracle anyone slept. And then there's the labor itself. Weeding, backbreaking, harvesting, even worse. Every stalk of grain you cut is a gamble. Too slow, and the steward accuses you of slacking. Too fast, and you'll nick your fingers open. There are no gloves. There's no first aid. There's just you, your scythe, and the crushing realization that if you collapse, nobody's carrying you home. Oh, and let's talk about the Lord's generosity. Need to mill your grain? Too bad. You're legally required to use his mill where he takes a cut. Need firewood? Better hope he didn't declare that part of the forest off limits this week. One peasant in Essex got fined because his cow wandered into the Lord's favorite hunting path. The punishment? A day in the stocks, where the village kids threw rotten cabbages at him. Quirky tidbit. Some manors had pannage laws. Pay the Lord in pigs to let them eat forest acorns. Yes, paying for the privilege of your livestock foraging. The smell hits you before you even reach your door. A thick, greasy stench of wood smoke, animal dung, and generations of unwashed humanity. You tell yourself you're used to it by now, but that's a lie. Stepping inside your one-room hut is like walking into a moldy armpit. The floor is packed dirt. The walls are wattle and daub, which is just a fancy way of saying sticks of mud. And the roof leaks when it rains, which is always. Your bed is a pile of straw crawling with fleas. There are no pillows, just a rolled-up tunic if you're lucky. And forget privacy. Your entire family sleeps in this room, along with the chickens you can't afford to lose to thieves. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants actually slept sitting up to avoid rats running across their faces. But tonight, you're about to find out firsthand. Dinner is a sad affair. A thin stew of boiled grains, maybe a scrap of salted pork if it's a feast day. Your teeth ache from the grit in the bread, and your stomach growls despite the meal. You've heard rumors of spices and sugar in far-off lands. But here, flavor is a luxury reserved for the Lord's table. Your cup holds more weak ale. At this point, you're convinced it's just mildly alcoholic pond water. Just as you're about to collapse into your flea-infested straw, your youngest starts coughing that wet, rattling cough that's been going around the village. You exchange a glance with your spouse. Neither of you says it, but you're both thinking the same thing. Not again. Last winter, the coughing sickness took 3 children from your village. The priest said it was God's will. The Lord didn't even notice. Fun fact. Some peasants believed sleeping with a loaf of bread under the pillow would ward off illness. It didn't. The church bell tolls before dawn. Again, you groan into your scratchy straw pillow, but there's no ignoring it. Missing Mass means more than just spiritual consequences in your village. It means fines, side eyes from a priest, and possibly a stint in the stocks for moral correction. So you drag yourself upright, knees popping like overstretched rope, and shuffle toward the one building in town that actually has some warmth in it. The stone church looms, its walls sweating with condensation from the packed bodies inside. The air is thick with the smell of damp wool, unwashed feet, and the faint metallic tang of blood from the altar. The priest drones on in Latin, a language you don't understand, but you know the gist. Obey. Suffer. Pay your tithes. Your stomach growls as he reminds the congregation that the church takes 1/10 of your harvest before the Lord gets his cut. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants actually believed everything the church taught or just played along to avoid trouble. You're not sure yourself. You cross yourself when you're supposed to, kneel when everyone else does, but your mind wanders to the real problem waiting outside. Today's festival. Festivals sound fun until you realize they're just another form of labor. The Lord wants a show of merriment to prove his peasants are happy, and to remind them who provides the generosity of a day off. So you'll dance, you'll drink watery ale, and you'll cheer as the Lord's men stage a mock battle. Meanwhile, your back still aches, your kids are still hungry, and tomorrow the grind starts all over again. Quirky tidbit. Some villages had Lord's Fool contests, peasants competing to act the most foolish for scraps from the high table. The prize? An extra loaf of bread. The humiliation? Eternal. Winter isn't coming. It's here, and it's worse than you remembered. The cold seeps through the gaps in your hut's walls like an unwelcome guest, settling into your bones and refusing to leave. You wake to frost coating the inside of your home, your breath visible in the stale air. The fire burned out hours ago because firewood is scarce, and what you have must last months. Outside, the world is a monochrome nightmare. The fields are frozen wasteland, the village paths slick with ice. The animals huddle together in their pens, ribs visible under their matted fur. You check your grain stores for the 100th time, fingers trembling as you count the remaining sacks. It's not enough. It's never enough. Your youngest hasn't stopped coughing since autumn. The village wise woman gave you a poultice of moldy bread and herbs, but it's done nothing. The priest says to pray harder. The Lord steward, when you dared ask for help, laughed and said, "Plenty of peasants, few enough mouths to feed." You know what that means. Historians still argue whether the medieval winter was harder physically or psychologically. Right now, you don't care. You're too busy watching your spouse's hands shake as they portion out the last edible food, a handful of dried peas, a strip of salted meat thinner than your finger. The children don't complain. They've learned not to. And then, like a miracle, death comes, But not for you. Word spreads that the old Lord has died. For one wild moment, you dare to hope. Maybe the new one will be kinder. But then you remember the stories from the next village over, where the heir raised taxes to fund his mourning period. Your stomach sinks. Nothing changes. Nothing ever changes. As you huddle by the feeble fire, one truth becomes clear. You were born a peasant. You will die a peasant. And the only marker of your existence will be an unmarked grave. If the ground isn't too frozen to dig it, the fire sputters, casting long shadows across the hut. Outside, the wind howls through the barren fields, a sound so constant it's almost soothing. The children finally sleep, their breath shallow but steady. For now, they're safe. For now, the cold hasn't won. You let your eyes close just for a moment. The straw prickles your back, the fleas bite, but none of it matters right now. Somewhere beyond these walls, the Lord sleeps on goose-down pillows. The priest dreams of heavenly rewards. And you? You dream of nothing at all, because tomorrow will come too soon, and it will be the same as today. But here, in this fragile darkness, there's a strange kind of peace. The world is cruel, yes, but it's also simple. You work, you endure, you survive, and when the end comes, it won't ask for your taxes first. The wind sighs through the cracks in the walls, almost like a lullaby. Somewhere in the distance, a lone wolf cries. You pull your threadbare blanket tighter and drift into the closest thing to rest this life allows. Sleep comes. For now, it's enough.